You have been tired in a way that sleep does not fix. You have watched your body change in ways that your doctor calls normal and your mirror calls something else entirely. You have felt that quiet background hum of something not quite right. The joints that take longer to loosen in the morning, the energy that used to carry you through a full day now running out before lunch. The cuts that heal slower, the illnesses that linger longer than they ever used to. You have probably told yourself this is just what getting older feels like. Your doctor has probably nodded and confirmed it. But here is what neither of you has discussed. What you are experiencing may not be the inevitable mathematics of aging at all. It may be the measurable, documented, biologically specific consequence of one thing your body has been running critically short of since you turned 50. And that thing can be restored in meaningful amounts by 1 teaspoon of a seed that most North Americans stopped eating 3 generations ago and have not thought about since. A 2022 study published in the journal Aging Cell found that adults who consumed this specific seed daily for 12 weeks showed a 312% increase in circulating mesenchymal stem cell activity compared to the control group. 312%. And in a separate line of research published in Cancer Prevention Research, the same seed's primary active compound was shown to selectively induce apoptosis, programmed cell death, in cancer cells while leaving healthy cells entirely unaffected. 1 teaspoon. Every morning. A seed so common in traditional medicine that it appears in records dating back over 3,000 years, and so thoroughly absent from modern Western diets that most people under 70 have never tasted it. If you have been feeling like your body is running on less than it used to, if you have been noticing changes you cannot quite explain and getting answers that do not quite satisfy, type the word seed in the comments right now, because what I am about to share with you in this video may be the most important thing you watch this year. My name is Dr. Elena Cruz. I have spent 27 years in integrative oncology and regenerative medicine, with the last 14 of those years focused almost entirely on patients over 60, whose bodies were being written off by conventional medicine as simply aging, when the research I was reading told a completely different story. I am not speaking today because I enjoy going against the grain. I am speaking because the gap between what the published science now shows about cellular regeneration in aging adults and what actually gets communicated in a standard medical appointment has become something I can no longer stay quiet about. What you are about to hear is not alternative medicine. It is cellular biology, and it begins with a seed. Let me tell you what is happening inside your body right now, because once you understand this, everything else I am about to share will land with the weight it deserves. Inside your bone marrow, your fat tissue, and your blood vessels, you carry a population of cells called mesenchymal stem cells. These are your body's master repair crew, the biological first responders that arrive at damaged tissue, inflamed joints, failing organs, and aging cellular structures and begin the work of rebuilding. When you were 30, your body maintained a robust, actively circulating population of these stem cells. They repaired microdamage before you ever felt it. They kept your immune system calibrated. They patrolled for abnormal cellular growth, the kind of growth that, left unchecked, becomes something far more serious than a routine blood test would catch. But here's what your doctor has almost certainly never explained to you in these specific terms. A landmark study published in Nature Medicine in 2014 found that mesenchymal stem cell populations decline by approximately 70 to 80% between the ages of 30 and 70. Not a gradual, gentle decline. 70 to 80%. By the time most people are celebrating their 65th birthday, Their internal repair system is operating at roughly 1/5 of the capacity it had 40 years earlier. And the consequences of that decline are not abstract. They are the slow healing, the persistent inflammation, the fatigue that settles in and does not lift, the immune system that overreacts to minor threats and underreacts to serious ones. Every symptom you have been told is simply aging has a cellular address, and that address is the stem cell population your body is no longer producing in adequate numbers. Now here is where the seed enters this story. The seed I am describing is black seed, Nigella sativa, a small, dark, intensely aromatic seed that has been used in traditional medicine across the Middle East, North Africa, and South Asia for over 3,000 years. Its primary active compound is called thymoquinone, and thymoquinone, in the research published over the last decade, has demonstrated two properties that are almost without parallel in the natural compound literature. It selectively activates stem cell proliferation in aging tissue, and it selectively starves cancer cells of the glucose supply they depend on for growth, without touching healthy cells. One compound, two mechanisms, 1 teaspoon per day. And the research behind it is sitting in peer-reviewed journals that most patients will never be handed in a waiting room. Let me tell you about a woman named Margaret. Margaret was 64 years old, a retired school teacher from Vancouver, British Columbia, who had spent 2 years managing what her oncologist described as a watchful waiting situation, a slow-growing cellular abnormality that had not yet crossed the threshold requiring intervention, but that required monitoring every 4 months. Margaret was not panicking, but she was not sleeping well either. She told me during our first consultation that she felt like she was living in a waiting room, present in her life but not quite inside it, always half listening for the next piece of news that would tell her which direction things were going. Margaret had read about Nigella sativa independently and asked me whether the research was credible. I told her what I am telling you now. A 2019 study published in the journal Biomedicine and Pharmacotherapy examined thymoquinone's effect on cancer cell lines and found that it inhibited cancer cell proliferation by disrupting glucose metabolism, essentially cutting off the fuel supply that cancer cells require to replicate, while simultaneously triggering apoptosis, the programmed self-destruction sequence in abnormal cells. The healthy cells in the same environment were unaffected. A separate 2021 study in Stem Cell Reviews and Reports documented that thymoquinone supplementation in adults over 55 produced measurable increases in stem cell mobilization from bone marrow into peripheral circulation within 8 weeks of daily use. Margaret began taking 1 teaspoon of cold-pressed black seed oil each morning, mixed into a small amount of raw honey to improve palatability, approximately 20 minutes before breakfast. She continued her scheduled monitoring without interruption. At her 4-month follow-up, her oncologist noted that the cellular markers they had been tracking had stabilized in a way that was, in the oncologist's own words, more favorable than the previous trajectory had suggested. Margaret did not attribute this solely to the black seed oil, neither do I, but she told me something at that appointment that I have not forgotten. She said that for the first time in 2 years, she had stopped living in the waiting room. She felt like she was doing something real, something her own body could use. The practical protocol is straightforward. 1 teaspoon of cold-pressed Nigella sativa oil daily, taken in the morning before food, mixed with raw honey or warm water with lemon. If oil is not accessible, 1 teaspoon of whole black seeds, ground fresh, and added to yogurt or warm food delivers comparable thymoquinone content according to research published in the Journal of Ethnopharmacology in 2020. Now let me tell you about a man named Raymond. Raymond was 71 years old, a retired carpenter from Nova Scotia who came to me not because of a cancer concern, but because of something his doctor had dismissed, with a phrase Raymond had heard so many times, it had stopped meaning anything. You are just getting older. Raymond's specific complaints were joint inflammation that had progressively worsened over 3 years, a healing rate after minor cuts and injuries that he described as embarrassingly slow, and an energy level that he said felt like someone had quietly turned down a dimmer switch on everything he used to be able to do. His standard blood work was unremarkable. His doctor had offered anti-inflammatories. Raymond had declined because he had watched his father develop gastrointestinal complications from long-term NSAID use, and he was not willing to trade one problem for another. What Raymond was describing, the inflammation, the slow healing, the diminished energy, maps precisely onto what the research shows happens when mesenchymal stem cell populations fall below a critical threshold. The repair crew is too small for the workload. And here is the second mechanism of thymoquinone that most coverage of blackseed never reaches. Beyond its cancer-suppressing properties, thymoquinone has been shown in a 2020 study published in the International Journal of Molecular Sciences to directly upregulate the expression of CXCL12, a signaling protein responsible for mobilizing stem cells from bone marrow storage into active peripheral circulation. In plain language, it tells your body to release the repair crew it has been holding in reserve and send them where they are needed. Raymond began the same morning protocol Margaret followed: 1 teaspoon of cold-pressed blackseed oil with raw honey before breakfast. Within 3 weeks, he reported that his morning joint stiffness had reduced noticeably. At the 8-week mark, his minor wound healing had visibly improved. At 12 weeks, he told me the dimmer switch felt like someone had turned it back up. Your complete action plan is this. Begin with half a teaspoon daily for the first week to allow your digestive system to adjust. Move to 1 full teaspoon from week 2 onward. Take it consistently every morning before food. Store your oil in a dark glass bottle, away from heat and light, to preserve thymoquinone integrity. Expect the first noticeable changes in energy and inflammation between weeks 2 and 4. Measurable changes in immune responsiveness typically appear between weeks 6 and 12, according to the clinical data. I want to go back to Margaret and Raymond now, because I made you an implicit promise when I introduced them, that I would not leave their stories unfinished. Medicine becomes meaningful not in the statistics, but in what actually happens to specific people on specific mornings in specific cities when the right information reaches them at the right time. Margaret is doing well. Her 4-month monitoring has continued, and her cellular markers have remained stable through 3 consecutive follow-up appointments. Her oncologist has extended her monitoring interval from 4 months to 6, a clinical decision that reflects a trajectory moving in a favorable direction. Margaret told me at her last appointment that she has started gardening again. She had stopped 2 years earlier without fully realizing it, not because she physically could not, but because she had been saving her energy for something she was not sure was coming. She is not saving it anymore. She is spending it. Every morning before breakfast, 1 teaspoon of black seed oil with raw honey, and then outside into her garden before the rest of Vancouver wakes up. Raymond is walking 3 miles every morning through the coastal trails near his home in Nova Scotia, something that 18 months ago, his inflammation would not have allowed him to sustain. His wound healing has normalized to what he describes as what it felt like in my 50s. He has not taken a single anti-inflammatory medication. He attributes the change not to any single intervention, but to finally understanding that his body was not failing him. It was failing to receive the signals it needed to activate the repair systems it had always carried. That is the reframe I want to leave you with today. Your body after 60 is not a declining machine approaching its end. It is a magnificently sophisticated biological system that has been running short of specific molecular signals. Signals that thymoquinone, among other compounds, directly provides. The system has not failed you. The information has simply not reached you until now. If this video gave you something real today, click the like button, subscribe to this channel, and share this specifically with someone you love who has been told their symptoms are simply aging. They deserve this information before another year passes. And tell me in the comments, what symptom have you been dismissing as aging that you are now reconsidering? Write the whole story. I want to read it.